Okay, so I'll go ahead and get the meeting starting as people join. I'm sure some more will be coming. We had quite a few registrations for this month. So this is our third quarter meeting for the Eastern Iowa IIBA chapter. For those who are not aware, last year or so, we decided to go to quarterly meetings along with a couple networking events through the year. And we are fortunate today to have Reinhard Klett as our presenter. Reinhard and I crossed paths, I won't say how many years ago, but a while back in Southern California in college, and reconnected, probably about a year ago. And he told me what he was doing. And in the back of my mind, I thought, boy, that would be a good presentation for our chapter. And as the board was discussing plans for this year, it came back to the top of my mind, and we contacted him. And he was able to present today, so we appreciate it, Reinhard. So I will go ahead and turn over the meeting to you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm glad to be sharing this with you. Can you see my screen?
It is coming. There we go.
It is
We
coming.
can see
Yeah,
the,
I have to realize that there's always a second delay or so before you can see it. So again, thank you very much, and appreciate the opportunity to present to your team today. It is a topic that I think is important to a lot of people. A lot of business owners, business leaders are suffering from a lot of burnout, from a lot of anxiety, and it's a very demanding world out there. And high performers, though, can succeed without the stress and the anxiety and making a lot of compromises. Just as an example, one of my first clients, he was working in a construction company or in a subcontractor company for several years. It was his uncle's, and he took it over when his uncle did about $400,000 in sales a year. And then he grew that company very quickly within a few short years to 3 million a year, but he was burned out, very burned out. It affected his health. He didn't feel fit. His family was complaining that he never had any time with them. And so he said, I need to talk to you. We need to work. I need a coach. So I decided, okay, let's work together. And we worked together. And now he does 12 million in sales. So quadrupled his business, but he's working on a lot less than when he did the 3 million in sales. So what has changed? He applied a lot of the things that I was coaching him through, the high performance habits, and let go of some of the things that were holding him back. And so he's a much happier camper now. He's spending time with his children. He's playing Little League with them and coaching them. He's even an elder in his church, and he's just much, much better, in a much better condition while he continues to grow his business. So let's look at how this is possible, because a lot of people think that you have to sacrifice your health and your relationships in order to be successful in business. Let's see here. Now it would be, here we go. Okay, now who is this for? I think all the business leaders pretty much that are calling in would this topic may be resonating with them. A lot of you may be thinking that I can't keep up working at this pace. It's just too fast paced and it's not sustainable. Something has to give. Or you feel like you're doing well, but you're not thriving the way you would like to thrive in your business. And maybe you just lost the joy in the work that you're doing. You're just going through the grind each day and without really enjoying it. And a lot of that has to do is because there may be too much stress and too much anxiety in your work. So if any of this applies to you, or even as a young person, if you're striving maybe to have a business one of these days, or striving to maybe climb up the ladder a little bit, but are reluctant because you see all the stress that your bosses are exposed to, so then this is definitely something for you to consider. To quickly tell you my story and why this matters to me, I was born and raised in Germany, and I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. I worked in the automotive industry for almost 30 years. Internationally, I was involved in project management, in technical sales, and program management. And I worked with suppliers and also customers all over the world on all 5 continents. And that gave me a lot of insight on culture, on how it affects the companies that you work with, not only the regional cultures or the national cultures, but also the company cultures, which vary greatly from one to another. And I have seen how the right culture really has a huge impact, not only on the bottom line, but also on the happiness and the health of the employees. So but then at the age of 59, I was at the end of my career because I was let go from a company that asked me to do things that I had ethical issues with, where I had concerns that these things were not the right thing to do. I just could not, with a clear conscience, follow their directives, and therefore I was let go. Of course, it was stressful initially, but then in the long term, I now consider it a blessing in disguise because it forced me to start my own business because I didn't want to get back into another toxic corporation. So what I did is I started to invest in real estate. That was the business I started. But we had done some of that before in the past in another state. But things have changed. The market is different. The environment is different. The economic conditions, the banking regulations, a lot has changed in the meantime. So I had to take a lot of courses in real estate investing to really get current. But also I realized that I needed to work on my own personal development. And I came across a coach, a certified high performance coach, who did some coaching on high performance habits, coaching that is strongly correlated to high performance. That is, it's based on a lot of extensive research that they have done. The High Performance Institute, which is owned by Brendon Burchard, they have studied high performers around the world in many different countries, hundreds of them. These are people who perform well in their field, well above average, consistently, and in the long run, while they maintain good health and happy relationships. So they were trying to see what do they all have in common. And so these are the habits that we're going to look at. But also because I enjoyed the coaching process so much and realized how much it helped me, I wanted to share that with other business owners that I was connecting with. And I got the training and the certification as a coach, and now I'm coaching them as well. And it's really been a lot of fun. It's very, very rewarding. And especially seeing how the pain that they've been going through, how that can be avoided. You know, the health issues, the relationship issues. Sometimes it can be heartbreaking what business owners are going through. And research has shown that actually business owners and executives often have twice the number of mental health issues than the average population because they just put up with it and they think that's normal, but that's really not normal. That's not sustainable, and that can be avoided, as I mentioned. Now, my coach not only helped me regain focus and also get my courage and my confidence back, but he also encouraged me to write a book that I was thinking about writing for several years. And that's about that book is here. Yes, you can see letting go saved my life. That is actually based on an experience of a life and death experience that I had when I lived in Southern California. A friend of mine became a flight instructor, and I had the opportunity to fulfill a childhood dream, which is to get a pilot's license. And so on my third solo flight, I was all by myself in the cockpit. I started to practice approach to landing stall recovery. And I inadvertently got into a graveyard spiral. I had no idea on how to get out of it. The earth was turning like a disc in front of me, and the instruments showed the rapid descent. It's not part of pilot training on private pilot training on how to get out of it. So I had no idea what to do. Tried everything I could think of with the controls, but nothing worked. Finally, after dropping 1,000 feet out of the sky, I let go of all the controls and said, God, take this plane. In an instant, the plane came out of this spiral and got into a straight and narrow flight. I ended up dropping 1,000 feet and ended up being at about 1,500 feet above the ground. Had I held on to the controls just a few more seconds, I would have crashed the plane. So as I was sharing the story with people over the years, they shared things with me that where it helped them to hear the story that they to realize what they have to let go in their own lives. So that's what the book is all about. And then I wanted to reach out more people with that and actually talked about the topic on a TEDx talk at Purdue University last year. You can look that up on YouTube. Now, back to the problem that most business owners or executives are facing, the big problem. The problem is that business should not cost you your health or your peace of mind and your relationships. It is not necessary. That's not what we build a business for, is it? So much of what we are going through, the stress that we go through, there's often hidden cost to it. The things sort of like we see the top of the iceberg, but we don't see all the stuff that's going on beneath it. Just the burnout, the fatigue that we experience, the resentment sometimes that we start building towards, having a business. Then also the broken relationships, the heart attacks, the strokes, the warning signs, the headaches. A lot of people have headaches, stress headaches, or back pain. And a lot of back pain, which I actually experienced at one time, is psychosomatically induced. And once that is discovered and realized, most of the back pain, actually, they figure almost 90% of all back pain could be avoided. But people don't realize that. And so what they do is they take drugs to numb them. And then, of course, that doesn't help with their energy level when they take drugs. It just covers things up. It doesn't solve the issue. So burnout, I want to stress this. It's not something that we need to be ashamed of. We need to address it. It's a warning. We need to address it and come to realize that most business owners are dealing with anxiety, with some level of burnout at one time or another. But it needs to be addressed, and there's no shame in addressing it. Now, the high performance habits, what are they? Oftentimes we think of successful people may be successful because based on their socioeconomic background, their IQ, maybe their personality traits, maybe even gender or ethnicity or neighborhood they grew up in, whatever. But a lot of these high performers, they come from all walks of life. And a lot of these things that we typically think of as being related to high performance are not very strongly correlated at all. They may have an impact, but not strongly correlated to high performance. So what are these? I'm just going to list them quickly here. See clarity. They have a high level of clarity about their lives, what they want and why they want it. And we'll go into more detail on each of these. They also generate a lot of energy, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual energy. They demonstrate courage, and especially as leaders, they also encourage courage. They increase consistently their productivity. They always get better at things and get a lot of things done, especially the things that matter. And then they also, the fifth one is they develop a lot of influence. They have a lot of influence in people and therefore are able to make a great impact. So the first one, seeking clarity, that is extremely important. That's sort of the foundation of everything that we're building everything else on. If we need to be very clear about what we want, what's the vision for our lives, what do we expect from life, what are our dreams, how do we see ourselves in the future, but also what are our values, what is important to us. What are our guiding values and principles? What are our morals? So think of it. If you had no limitations, what your ideal life would look like, or your career in a few years from now, what would that look like? Are you clear about that? And are you clear why you want that to be that way? Sometimes we have an idea in our head, and it's a vision that's just up in our head, but we're not connected to it on an emotional and a heart level. And then when things get tough, and they will usually when we have a business and when we move up on the corporate ladder or whatever it may be, when things get tough and we are not strongly connected on an emotional level to our vision, we may easily give up, or we may not have the resilience and the persistence to continue going forward. So when we look at our why we want something, then we have to ask ourselves 7 levels deep. And that's something that I learned from Dean Graziosi. And I'll just give you a personal example that I wrote down a few years ago myself. It starts out this way. First of all, we say what is important to us. In this example, why is it important to you about becoming successful? Well, for me, it was I want to become financially independent. Then the answer to that question becomes the next question. Level 2, why is it important to you to become financially independent? Well, my answer was so I can take good care of my wife and my children. Well, why is it important to you to provide well for your family? My answer, my father always did, and that gave us a sense of security. Well, why is it important to you to have a sense of security? Well, so we can be free to do what we enjoy and what fulfills us in life. Well, why is it important for you to enjoy and feel fulfilled? Because that's what I experienced growing up. Now, why is it important to you to have your family experience what you experienced? Because I've seen the hardships of others, and I don't want my family to experience that. Now, other people the answer may be completely different. They may say, well, because my childhood was so hard and we were so financially insecure and so on, and I was always so stressed, I don't want that for my family. So whatever it is, it's important to know why. And so why is it important to you that your family does not experience hardship? Well, I don't want to contribute to or be the cause of suffering, because that would hurt me very deeply. It starts to get emotional. And that's where it needs to go in order for us to really have the stamina, the persistence, and the resilience to keep going when things are tough. So those are the things that we need to be very clear about. So clarity was the number one habit. The second one is generating energy. Generating energy, you all know, without the right amount of energy, we cannot get things done, can we? Like if we wake up this way all the time, or walk around like this, or your boss walks around like this, or your co-worker walks around like this, that doesn't give you a lot of energy. So we'd rather be with a guy like there, up there, right? And so we need to find a way on how to get there. And how do we get there? There's several aspects of energy that we need to consider. The first one is physical. So we have to ask ourselves the question, what are we doing to support our health? How much exercise are we getting? It is incredibly important to exercise, not only for our physical health, it's not just good for our cardiovascular system, for all that, but what is good for the other organs, for the heart and the lungs and in all the other functions in our body. It's also very important for our mental health. When I was at Purdue University to do the TEDx talk, I shared the stage with a neuroscientist and a medical doctor who was doing a lot of research on dementia. And he said the number one thing that you can do to help you prevent dementia is to exercise. That's the most important thing you can do. And all the other things that are helping your heart health and your other health, do those as well so that you can maintain a good health of your brain. Your brain is an organ that can also grow. They now know that there's neuroplasticity. You can continue to grow and expand your brain actually through the right health habits and through the right methods. So there's a lot that you can do in that area. So physical health, it's not just about living longer. It's living better while you're around, and especially having the physical stamina to put up with all the demands of being a business owner or an executive. Now, the next part of our energy has to do with our mental health. So we have to ask ourselves, how clear and focused are we? or are we constantly distracted? We talked earlier before we got on the call about social media. How distracted are we? And how much is our mind busy with all kinds of things that have nothing to do with the vision that we have built for our lives, with the clarity that we have built? So that's the question you have to ask yourself. The next one is emotional energy. How much emotional energy do we have? Does your mindset support your emotional energy, your emotional well-being? There's a lot, it has a lot to do with how we think. The way we think has a lot to do with how we feel. And that's why we have to guard very intentionally what we are thinking about, what we put our mind to. And I'm going to go into this a little bit more here in a minute. And then spiritual energy. You may think, what about spiritual energy? Well, this is not necessarily religious, but this has to do with living a life of integrity. Does your life reflect your values and your beliefs? You know, if we don't live in integrity, if we don't congruent with our values and our beliefs, it's eroding our confidence. So it's very important that we pay attention to that we consistently act with integrity. So I'll go through a couple of steps about emotional energy. Why do we walk around like this guy sometime at the bottom? And what is it that helps us to get to where this guy is? Now, there are 3 steps to overcome oppressive emotions, such as anxiety. And I'm talking a little bit more in detail. You can look that up on my TEDx talk there that I gave. You can look that up on YouTube, where it's, the title is How Letting Go Saved My Life. So basically, there are 3 steps to overcome oppressive emotions. Sometimes it's easy to say just overcome or let go of the fear, let go of the anxiety, but there's usually some thinking. There's an underlying belief behind why we have anxiety. And the example that I'm giving is the one that I experienced when I started my own business. I had a lot of worries around money. So whenever, a bill came up that I wouldn't expect, it was like this punch in the gut, and it really had a negative impact on my emotional energy. And like one time we had this real estate deal where I was possibly losing a lot of money, and it really stressed me out. But I was thinking about it and discussing it with my coach, and he told me, "So you are worried. What exactly are you worried about?" And I realized the underlying belief behind the anxiety that I had around money was that we may not have enough. And he asked me, "Is that true?" It was interesting that my wife was not worried at all. She was not worried at all. Now, why was she not worried and I'm worried? Thankfully, she was not worried. That can stress you out even more when your spouse gets worried also. But the difference was her underlying belief was this: we will always have enough. And looking back at our lives, I realized we've always had enough. And you are still all here. That means you've always had enough. So replacing that false or limiting belief that we may not have enough helped me to ask myself more empowering questions, to think more clearly. Then instead of asking myself, what's going to happen if we lose everything, if we go bankrupt or this or whatever happens, instead of asking those disempowering questions, I'm asking myself now the empowering questions, which is like, what can we do to generate income? And that created all kinds of positive ideas, which then helped us to have a more positive energy. Those positive thoughts created more positive energy, and the energy led us to take action. And we started a business, which then provided the income we needed, which then, made sure that we didn't have to worry about money anymore, or that we didn't have to, we were taken care of. So that taking action then is the third step, which we can do is if we don't worry ourselves so much that we don't have even any energy left to think straight and to act straight. So when we look at the high performance habits, I sometimes look at those as like stepping on the gas. But what I have experienced one time is when we when I had to buy a new chainsaw, and for the first time in my life, I was cutting an oak tree, and I couldn't believe how hard it was to cut that oak tree. I had always cut pine trees, and they have softwood, and it was so easy to cut them. And I was revving the engine like crazy, burning up a lot of fuel. But the thing got very hot, so I was worried about it. Took it to the dealer, and I said, maybe there's something wrong. He said, yeah, it's under warranty. We'll fix it. So the next day they called back and they said, well, it's not under warranty. Sorry, because you had the brake on. I said, what? I couldn't believe it. My old chainsaw, when the brake was on, it was locked. It wouldn't move at all. They said, yeah, they put this cheap bent brake in now. If you rev the engine hard enough, it still, will move a little bit. And so that helped me to realize, wait a minute, sometimes we have the brake on. Something is holding us back, and we're not even aware of what it is. So the first thing is we need to take the foot off the brake, so to speak, and not just apply the high performance habits, but also let go. So take the foot off the brake and then step on the gas. So letting go, there's just a few examples of what stresses people out that they need to let go of. Things to address and to explore. How much is there fear of failure? Fear of failure? Is there the fear of the unknown, and how can we deal with that? Sometimes it's imposter syndrome. Sometimes people think, oh, who am I? Am I qualified? Am I the right person? And it's oftentimes false humility that leads people to the imposter syndrome. I mean, I was thinking, I never ever thought it, and it scared me to death even to think about doing a TEDx talk. But if you have a message to share, and it's important enough to share the message, you have to share it in service to others. It's not about you, it's about doing things so that you can be of service to other people. And then you have to overcome your own ego, your own fears in order to grow into a position where you can be of more service to other people. Perfectionism is often a problem where people micromanage things or try to do everything perfect. We strive for excellence. I don't like mediocrity, but perfectionism can sometimes waste a lot of energy. You have heard of the diminishing rate of return. When we spend X amount of time or energy or resources to get something done 90%, and it would take like 2 or 3 X's to get it done 100%, when it really doesn't matter all that much sometimes, depending on the case. Fear of judgment is another one. We will be judged always, especially if we go out of what most people do. If we do things differently, then people will judge us, and they will tell us, if we fail, they will say, oh, yeah, I told you so. But if we succeed, they say, you were lucky. So workaholism, I mean, if we are workaholics, that can be an issue where we don't take enough care of ourselves, or comparing ourselves to others is one of the things we should avoid. Now, if we do compare ourselves with others, we need to only do it in a positive way. I give you an example. I like to run in a park nearby for exercise, and one round is 1 mile, and sometimes I do several rounds. And I was passing one day, I was passing a woman, and she was walking, and it was hard for her, it seemed. And she, just after passing her a couple of times, she said, you inspire me. And I thought, oh, thank you. So in that sense, she compared herself. She said, okay, what's this guy doing that helps me also to get better, to get more fit? And then another day, the exact same situation. I'm passing this guy a couple of times, and he says, you make me look bad. Now, the question is, how do we compare? If we compare, we shouldn't compare ourselves and make ourselves feel bad or look bad when somebody may be doing better in something. And we must not also be arrogant and look down on people where we may do a better job. But we compare so we can learn from others. What are their habits? What are they doing that helps them to be better in whatever area that may be? So another one is, whoops, need to go back. Another one is fear of missing out, or FOMO, as they call it, and especially true for young people. And if you have a long bucket list, maybe that's a problem. But realize you can live a fulfilled life without all your dreams being fulfilled. That's very important to remember. Another thing we need to let go, and that is if we have a difficulty receiving feedback. If our ego is so big that we can't allow for critical feedback from people, to where we are lack the humility to take feedback, which only can help us to improve and to grow. So that's one of the things we need to let go. That's just a short list of some of the things where it helps us to realize if we don't let go of those, they can really hold us back. Sometimes we may not even be aware of it, but listen to other people and have an awareness, a sensitivity. Ask your spouse or ask close friends, ask colleagues what you may need to let go. The third habit of the 5 high performance habits is courage. So we need to demonstrate courage in our lives. The question you have to ask yourself, is there an issue in your life that you have been avoiding? Or is there somebody that you need to have a difficult conversation with? And what would your most courageous person do in those situations? And also, as leaders, it's not only that we demonstrate courage ourselves, but that we also encourage courage. And I'll give you a couple of examples. There was a study done on medical malpractice a few years ago, which showed that 70% of all medical malpractice was due to the fact that the nurses didn't speak up. So they were intimidated by the doctors who would yell and scream at them, I'm the doctor, and who are you to tell me anything? So that's important that we also encourage courage. And I had a boss when I worked for an automotive supplier, and we had General Motors as a client, and I was a program manager for the General Motors account, and we had some quality issues. And our boss, the VP, he said, there's no way we're going to tell the customer about this, only over my dead body. But I was able to bring it up and mention my concerns. I said, well, I think it's only a matter of not if, but when the customer will find out. And when they find out, it's going to destroy the trust and the relationship that we have built over the years. So we have to tell them. We have to make them aware of it. Of course, tell them what we're going to do about it, but also make them aware of it, that we are not hiding things, to continue to maintain that trust and maybe even increase the trust level by sharing those issues. So demonstrate courage and also encourage courage. The fourth habit is high performers increase their productivity. Consistently, they look at high levels of productivity. What does that mean? A lot of them, they let go of controlling and micromanaging everything, and being too much in their business and not allowing others to do a lot of the work that they, as the boss of the company, shouldn't be doing. Because if he's working too much in the business, then he doesn't have time to work on the business, i.e. on strategy and thinking about how to improve things. So why are employees not engaged? So many times it's because they're just told every detail and what they're supposed to do, and they're not asked a lot of questions. So what helps to really reduce the workload for a business owner? And I mentioned to you in the beginning, the guy that really grew his business but was burned out. Well, as we were working together, he started to delegate a lot more of what he was doing. So he doesn't do nearly as much work anymore, and he can focus on, again, working on the business. What helps there when we manage our people, that we adopt more of a coaching style in our management rather than micromanaging. That is, we ask the employees to help find the solutions, to solve problems, have them engaged. And there's a principle in leadership. It's the number one principle in leadership. People support what they create. So if we help them find the solutions and help them solve problems, then they don't have to come to us all the time. Plus, when we give them a solution and they don't necessarily believe in it or have bought into it, they may not support it. They may even subconsciously sabotage it, but they support what they themselves create. They will not sabotage what they have, the ideas that they have come up with. So that's important. And to get them engaged and to be able to delegate, it's also important to go back to habit number one, where we have clarity about our vision, where we want the company to be, what we want the company to stand for, what the values of the company are, on which we base all our decisions. All those things have to be communicated clearly. And then they don't have to come to our office every time for every little thing and ask us questions all the time. So also one other thing is we have to leave our ego behind us. And when we have problems and issues in our company, that we ask ourselves not who is right, but what is right, and go for the best solution, whatever the issue may be. And the last thing I want to mention there when it comes to productivity, very productive people or successful people say no more often. Really, really successful people is what Warren Buffett said. They say no most of the time. Brendon Burchard mentioned one time, he said, when he was asked, how do you get it all done? He said, because I don't. That means saying no to a lot of things is so important. And creating a not to-do list is as important as a to-do list. Because for every yes to something that's not as important and that's not really aligned with our vision for our lives, then we're saying no to something else that's much more important. So saying no, setting boundaries, not only for others, but also for ourselves, is extremely important to reach high levels of productivity. I like this one. This summarizes sort of let go and let's go together to increase our productivity as a team. Developing influence is extremely important. We can't do it, as I said, all by ourselves. We have to have a positive influence in at work and positive influence at home. For that, we have to adopt a role model mindset. We cannot act like hypocrites. We have to be willing to do the things that we're asking other people to do. And we have to show genuine concern about the well-being of our employees or our family members, wherever we are. And we have to be fully present with them. But also we have to praise them and encourage them and cheer them on. I grew up in a culture where it was said, no complaint is enough praise. Now, that doesn't help you to build confidence. And children and employees, they can grow in confidence when you praise them for the right things. I'm not talking about empty flattery. I'm talking them praising them to encourage them to know they're on the right track. And so that is so important. And they will go at length through trying to do things well and to do things right if you praise them. That gives them confidence. If they lack that confidence, they go into cover-ups and they go into ego and they go into counterfeit of confidence, which is pride and stuff like that. It doesn't work. And also, last thing I would say, avoid empty claims. I've worked for a company where everybody always talked about, we are family, we are family. Those were empty claims that were mentioned maybe at a employee meeting or at the company picnic, but on a daily basis, the way people were treated did not reflect this at all. So avoid empty claims. And being respectful and fully present with people, which is very challenging these days where everybody's on the phone and responds to the phone all the time. Put that aside and be fully present with the people you are with at a time. So a lot of this, there's a lot to really become a high performer and to do and it's not always easy to do that alone. Even billionaires have coaches. Brendon Burchard, who did our training, he coaches Fortune 50 CEOs and billionaires, and they know that they haven't arrived. Everybody has room to grow. Everybody can get better at what they're doing. With the right kind of support, clients report, and these are some of the things that I've heard from my clients, that they have more confidence and clarity in their lives now. They have a lot more healthier routines that help them to maintain their health and their well-being. They make better decisions, which lead to better relationships as well. And there is sustainable business growth. which does not cost them their health and their relationships and their happiness in their lives. So if you want to learn a little bit more, if you want to explore a little bit more on how this can help you, feel free to schedule a call. There's the CR code here. You can take a picture of that, and also just look at the URL there. You can schedule a 15-minute call with me on my calendar, and we can just have a sort of a cursory assessment on where you are and whether I could possibly help you. And then if that's the case, we can take the next step and schedule a 60 to 90-minute call. If it's a free call, to have some clarity, to make some discovery, to see where we can help you, and if you decide whether you want to work together with me. Also, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And again, there's the QR code for that. And on LinkedIn, just look up my name as well, and you'll find me there. And also, you can download a checklist, which I promised to you. Did I promise that? I forget. At the end, you get a little checklist of things that you may want to let go. And you can get that off my website, and the